Hi everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and today is the full moon, so happy full moon, although you won't be watching this on the full moon because it's late on the full moon, and so this won't be up to the next day, but the energy is still there. And it is also hashtag embrace the magical month, and in honor of that, my dear friend Patrick sent me this wonderful cauldron mug, which I thought I was going to be really cool and show it to you, but it is full of tea now and you cannot actually see how cool the mug is. So perhaps by the end of the video you will be able to see the absolutely amazingness that is this cauldron mug. And then he also sent with this, along with some other goodies, but that's appropriate to this particular part, this wonderful like sculptured apple with a copper stem, and it has poison stamped on the side of it. Does this just not make your Halloween heart just so happy? And of course, what all of this goes together with is the wonderful Witchbone Tarot by Aubrey Siebe. So I don't know if it's Siebe or Siebe, I'm not sure. I apologize very much for slaughtering your name. I will put a link to, I think this is on Etsy, I'm not sure because obviously it was gift. This is a deck that you can, again, I think you have to pre-order it on Etsy. Now perhaps, or it's currently in a pre-order for another edition of it. And I think that the new edition has a, I want to say it has a tin and maybe a paper guidebook. There is a PDF guidebook to this with just kind of brief meanings for the cards. I'm not going to go through that today. I'm just going to go through the cards. I didn't print that out yet, but I think this is fairly Rider-Waite-Smith, with just some tweaking into the wicked wood. We go, hi ho. The author has a walkthrough of this themselves. The creator does, which of course then she talks about some of the reasons why that she painted the cards the way that she did, and so I will also put a link to that in the description box below, because obviously being able to see the artist's reasoning behind things is always, well, for me, always very interesting and fascinating. So I will most likely put a link to this below if I don't comment, and I will remember to do so. But with this edition, I believe it just came with the tuck box here, and the deck, and a PDF file of, again, fairly short meanings. It's not a intensive guidebook. It just kind of gives a little bit of direction for you, especially perhaps if you're not used to using tarot. At least it gives you a place to start. So there's that. We have the backs here, as you can see, are gorgeous, with these like two X's overlapping each other, like either a Roman numeral 20 or just an X marks a spot. But the concept of this is kind of into the wicked wood, which is so awesome and so poison apple-y, and so October embrace the magically. And you will see just in skimming that the color palette is black, gray, kind of black, white, grays, and red. That is the color palette for the deck. And yeah, it's really much more beautiful, I will say, in person than I expected it to be. A lot more depth. I do believe that some of the images that are put up on Instagram and things like that are put through a filter. And while that makes for really poppy graphics or pictures on Instagram or whatever, I do think that can be really problematic with a deck, because I will be honest that when I had first seen this, I thought it was a little bit too grungy for me. And she also has an astrology oracle deck, which I do have coming that, you know, once Patrick had in person, you know, said, oh no, it's not, you know, that it's not as highly saturated or contrasty as the images appear. So I wouldn't let that hold you back, as it did actually for me. So here we're just going to dive right in, since there's not, you know, a big guidebook to go through again. I believe in the past you would get emailed a version of the PDF, and it looks like on the Etsy shop, because I have looked at this to possibly purchase, and it looks like you get a little booklet with this new whatever edition that we're on right now. Can we just stick that apple right there? No, we can't, because we can stick it right there. But the apple just needs to be there. Let's just concede. So here we have the beautiful Fool card with a fawn. I have to say I love all of the major arcana. I think the majors are absolutely amazing and just about practically perfect in every way. Some of the minors, we'll talk about that when we get to it. But the majors to me are about perfection. So here we have the Fool as a freshly born foal, that would be a horse, fawn, as in a deer. Here we have the Magician as a moth. This is an animal deck, a forest deck. There are no people. There is one card that is a little bit of an exception, and that has a human-made thing. And that we'll talk about that when we get to that. But it is a forest. Into the Wicked Wood is kind of the theme of the deck. So the Magician, the idea of transformation within its very self, as the Magician, have a moth as the Magician, I think is brilliant. Here we have the beautiful High Priestess, which is, you know, looks like to be like a white leopard, and I love how the paint is kind of oozing downward into the depths. But I just think it's just beautiful. It looks very High Priestessy, and I love it. The Empress and the Emperor, I quite love the kind of combination of these two, because we do have the bee and the flower. You know, the flower obviously feeds the honeybee, and the honeybee pollinates the flower, and the two of them together, right, are this beautiful combination force of energy here. I think that's an amazing combo for the Empress and the Emperor. Beautiful. Love the Hierophant as a tree. I adore trees, and I definitely believe they have stories to share and tell, and so I think it's just perfect. Perfection. The Lovers card, we have two eagles in sort of a mating flight, I'm assuming. I know that birds will often lock. There are, I think, birds of prey and things that do lock things like that in sort of a tumbling mating ritual or dance, and I think that's really powerful and beautiful. I love the horse, of course, for it's a horse, of course, for the Chariot. Again, these are quite simple images, but they work really gorgeously. Like Justice as a candle shining the light of truth onto a situation. That, of course, again, that's kind of a human constructed thing, such as candles. Obviously, in the middle of the woods, you are not going to find candles. So I would have preferred sort of just completely sinking into, but we'll see how often that shows up. But I think it's not enough, where it's either there needs to be enough where that makes, although there are cups, so you do see that a little bit. But it's still beautiful. And we saw that even also in sort of like the Wild Unknown, where you have a very animal deck, but then there are human things such as swords and cups and things like that. And I would love to see this kind of an animal deck that just doesn't have any human things whatsoever, like just wildwoods things, like no human constructs. I would love to see that, but you know, that's when you make your own deck, right? I'm not going to make this kind of deck, but it's not a criticism, it's just, you know, an observation. I love this, probably one of my favorite hermits. I mean, look at that. Look at the owl in the wood here, in the bowl of the tree. Oh, I love it. I absolutely love this Wheel of Fortune. That is a creepy spider web. That is not a spider web that you want to run into in the middle of the forest, but it's really awesome. Here we have the Strength card as a wolf. Yes, yes, our inner wolf. Yes, yes, yes. Hanged Man with the snake hanging off the branch, 100% yes. I just think that's awesome. It definitely works. You again have the imagery of the Hanged Man. You have the different perspective, all of that kind of thing. It's just beautiful. And of course, all of the touches of red really work beautifully. Here we have, of course, Death with a rose growing through a skull. I really like this Temperance card where you get all four of the elements sort of in balance and a balance between the black and the red. You just definitely get that sense of balance and harmony here within all of the elements, which is really cool. I love the Devil card here. It does, you know, I know that sort of idea of the ram or the goat, you know, the goat head pentacle and everything is kind of tongue-in-cheek for me for the Devil card because it's kind of an obvious go-to, so to speak. But I do think it works. I mean, it taps into that devil energy, and I quite love the... I know I'm just talking about the Wild Unknown, and I'm not really trying to compare the two decks because they're very different energy, but just as another sort of all animal deck that there's not as many as you might think, and so it's hard to not make some degree of comparison. And I love that one with the feet on fire and the goat. And sort of the scapegoat idea for me is real strong there. The idea that we're putting off our problems and our flaws and our choices and decisions, and we're pushing that off onto this construct of a devil and creating a scapegoat. So I think that really actually works well. You know, own your own things, right? Own your own issues and deal with your own issues. Don't put it off onto something else as if it's not your problem. I really love this Tower card here with the emerging butterfly, but I really like the cocoon more than anything because it has that idea of what's going on in the cocoon. I had just, in the Devas of Creation Oracle deck, there is a card, I think it's called Metamorphosis, but I could be wrong. But it's talking about that idea of how one thing has to dissolve for another thing. So within that cocoon, the caterpillar is actually, there's a dissolution, there's a dissolving away of that caterpillar so that something new can come out of it. And I think that really works well, that sort of destruction of what is there, and so that something new can be created, which is very much about what the Tower card is. So I love that. This was my one little quibble, and again, this is just my Libra self. I don't see stars as water energy, and this is a symbol for water for me. Stars are fire. They are literally molten, fiery planetary things, and so that to me is a little bit weird to see the water, but this is also reflecting to the Star card, which does always have the star kneeling in water, right, or kneeling next to the water and pouring the water onto the earth and into the water. So that connotation of water in terms of tarot is very much connected with the Star card. So in that way, this really works beautifully. And I think that the author in her walkthrough talks about how for her stars are very much connected with water. So, you know, it's just, but for me, I just connect it with the tarot card and it works really beautifully. But I love the stars. Here we have the Blood Moon, which is just gorgeous. It's a blood moon. It's like, what else? It's not much else to say. Again, fire sign for the sun. I think it's gorgeous. You've got the flames. So we do have a little yellow here. I think that may be the only time we see yellow, but we will see as we go along. But I think there's not much yellow. It's pretty much using red sort of as the accent of color. But we'll see as we go. I think that works really beautiful. Again, it is the fire symbol, and so that works. Love this Judgment card. Love this kind of rebirth inside the dark of the cave, what's being born out, right? There's this jewel in here that's coming into fruition, which is really gorgeous. The World card, I think, is perfection. I think it's beautiful. It encompasses the entire wood, right? Because that's sort of the cosmos of this deck is the woods. So the World card would reflect. That's a gorgeous, gorgeous card. So then we get to the suits, and the suits really shine for me in the court cards, and some degree in the minor number cards, although there is a little bit of an issue on some of them, especially in the wands, where I feel like there's some inconsistency, but they're still really beautiful. So here we have the Ace of Cups as a rose. And then we have the Two of Cups as two roses. So these are very pip-like, which of course you know I quite love. So we have the pipness of the two, but then it goes to cups. So I really would have loved to have just stuck with the roses because it's the woods, right? There's not goblets in the woods. Well, maybe in the Wicked Witch's house, but there's not goblets in the woods. So I would have loved to just stick with this kind of rose pips, and that would have been amazing. But again, this is not my vision, so it's not that I think there's anything wrong with that. There's a little bit of inconsistency in some of the minors that I think could have been more cohesive, but it's just stunning, because there's a couple that are just, okay, well, I really like that. So we have the 3 cups, we have the 4 cups. Again, these are pips. So there's not, although, not much going on here in terms, although here we do see 3 black roses with 2, which would be the 5 of cups, which is that loss and sorrow. So we do see oftentimes the 3 full cups, and then there's the 3 knocked over cups and the 2 standing cups. So you do see that nod to the Rider-Waite-Smith there, and a nod to the meaning of the card with the black pips, whereas other ones, just like these, I guess you can think of wine and revelry in the celebration of the 3 of cups, but that's just 4 cups, right? That's very pip-like. So it's kind of a mix there, which you also, again, see in pippish type decks that are somewhat like, say, the Wild Unknown or even the Pagan Otherworlds that are pip decks, but they still have some degree of message in some of the cards about what the card might mean. I do think this is a deck that you would want a base understanding of the cards going into it, or maybe a little bit difficult to tap into it, but that to me is good to have those kinds of decks. So here we have the 6 of Cups, so we're kind of back to the rose theme with the river that's going here, but essentially this is a pip deck, or pip 6 of Cups. We have the 7 of Cups, sort of pick your poison. That's what I saw as soon as I saw that. So we have bottles here now. So now we have roses, bottles, and cups so far. And then we're back to the roses. But it's a beautiful 8 of Cups. We have the 9 of Cups. Not as big a fan of the sort of layered art, sort of graphic art here, but I do like that. And then the cauldron full of roses for the 10 of Cups is pretty cool. And then again, the court cards for me with the deck really shine with the courts. And so each one has an animal, and in this it is cardinals. So we have the Page of Cups here. We have the Knight of Cups on the branch. We have the beautiful Queen of Cups. I love the Queen of Cups here. The beautiful browns in this female cardinal. And then the King of Cups in all of his cardinal glory. I think, again, that the court cards are absolutely phenomenal in this deck. Here we have the Ace of Wands. I think for me personally, the wands suffer the most from not having a consistency about them. So here we start out with feathers, which to me, and I think to most people, would associate with air, so with swords. You would think of that more with swords than you would with feathers. But we have, but I also can get on board with the, you know, I think of feathers also in terms of quills and writing, and you think of creativity, and that goes with wands. So, you know, I can get there for sure. So here we have the Ace of Wands, the Two of Wands, again staying with feathers, and then all of a sudden we go to bones. We have Three of Wands here, which for me is about growth, and we kind of look like we're in a also, in Rider-Waite-Smith, it's that idea of waiting for something to come home. But here it almost looks like one of those like tar pits or something, which I don't really think of with growth. Patrick, I think in his, talked about it being more like a black mirror, seeing what's reflected back. Not sure about that one for me. And then we've gone to candles. So here we have the Four of Wands. Of course, flame certainly goes with fire. And then the Five of Wands, we have the locking antlers of deers, which makes sense with that idea of disruption that can come with the fives. And then we have the Six of Wands being just a deer with the antlers, which is just pip-like, right? It works. The Seven of Wands, you get the defensiveness of this, almost looks like a Wolverine of some sort. And then the Eight of Wands, we've gone to a mockingbird, or I think these are mockingjays. I might be wrong. But here we have the Eight of Wands as this bird here in flight. And then the Nine of Wands going to a snake coiled up, which is again interesting for how you would read the Eight of Wands or the Nine of Wands. I guess he's ready and defending himself, ready for that last wave. I see the Nine of Wands as dynamic energy. So yeah, so that's kind of interesting. And then the Ten of Wands, we've gone back to bones. I guess that weight of duty. So there's just a lot going on for me in the Wands. This is the one I probably would have to sit with the most to kind of figure out how I would go about this, reading these particular pips in the Wands. And then for the quartz, we have horses, which are beautiful, energetic, forward pushing. We have sort of feathers in the background of the horses, where we have the Page of Wands, the Knight of Wands, the Queen of Wands. That's gorgeous too, where almost the mane turns into the feathers. So so we have horses and feathers as the core. So that brings us to the aces. Love the Ace of Swords. Love the Two of Swords. Three of Swords, you know, I'm not a huge fan of the Rider-Waite-Smith Three of Swords, but, you know, it is what it is. It makes sense. It's certainly Rider-Waite-Smith, three swords in the heart. Four swords, we have the heart, or the rabbit rest here. The swords are not through the... So here we have consistency of at least there are swords in all of the cards. Even in this one, which is quite difficult, although not as bad as the Wild Unknown Ten of Swords. But we have this difficulty and this conflict here, and the swords piercing the bird. I love the Six of Swords, that flying up away. Now we don't actually have swords here. We have thorns, and we have the bird rising up, which to me goes very well with swords suit. And then we're two birds with the Seven of Swords. And then here we're back to swords. The Eight of Swords with the raven is really awesome. A little bit difficult, Nine of Swords. Definitely the nightmare card of the Rider-Waite-Smith. So it's definitely Rider-Waite-Smith based, but it's still pretty cool. And then the Ten of Swords has very Marseille pip style, with sort of a skeletal thing going around between it. So again, very much Rider-Waite-Smith in terms of inherent meaning of them behind what is essentially pips. So you can see that that's much more cohesive in terms of most of the cards have swords in them. The couple that don't certainly seem to make sense to the air suit. So that's a very cohesive movement there. Beautiful. The swords of ravens or crows that are the quartz, which I think is absolutely amazing. We have the page. The knight is awesome. And we have the gorgeous Queen and the King. Now, obviously, again, ideally, I would have just liked to have no human swords at all into the Wicked Wood, but you know, humans bring their wickedness into the wild woods, don't we? But I think the courts are awesome. And then that brings us to the Pentacles, which we start with the Seed here, which is, you know, perfect for the Ace of Pentacles. We have the 2 apples for the 2 of Pentacles, the 3 of Pentacles with another apple here with 3 slices. The 4 of Pentacles, again, very Rider-Waite-Smith. We have a greedy wolf who is very angry, having eaten a bloody apple. But you definitely have that sense of greediness, miserliness that I don't personally read in the 4 of Pentacles, but that's, you know, that's Rider-Waite-Smith. We have 5 black apples, again in that disruption number of 5. We can see that there, but still apples. The 6 of Pentacles, the 7 of Pentacles with the snake around the apples, which is pretty awesome. Then this to me is very random. We have seeds and apples, and even wolves eating apples, and black apples and apples and apples and snakes. And then we have a dream catcher. And so that to me is very strange to be in the woods at all. Into the Wicked Woods to have a Native American dream catcher is strange. And in the suit of Pentacles, when we have everything to do with apples, and then all of a sudden we have a dream catcher. Again, that's not consistent to me. Again, Libra brain, it's just kind of strange to me to have that there, because then we go to this amazing 9 of Pentacles, which is perfection, right? So we have this beautiful, one of my favorite images with the black apples underneath and the red apples above. It's just awesome. I wouldn't necessarily read much into this other than the fact that, you know, you've got abundance in all aspects, right? It's just cool. Let's just go with it being cool. And then the 10 of Pentacles, we have what seems, I'm guessing, are jewels and things in a chest. You know, all of your treasures together, which a basket full of apples probably would have rounded this particular suit off more consistently. But you can see it's fair, you know, it's fairly consistent across it. And I can even see the treasure chest. That's just more throwing to me personally. So that is that, and then it brings us to the court cards, which are wolves. And so we have the Page of Pentacles, the Knight of Pentacles, the Queen of Pentacles, and the King of Pentacles. Those are, to me, completely awesome. So I love this. I think that it's so in keeping with the author's theme of Into the Wicked Wood. It just feels very fall energy. It feels very Into the Wicked Wood. It definitely has a power punch impact with the red, you know, the punches of red, and the blacks and the grays are just, you know, it's just this time of year, right? It's embrace the magical. It's very much along the energy of Halloween and Samhain. Not that that's the only time you could use it, but it definitely has that vibe to it that is pretty cool. So let's give this a shuffle. Put my cauldron to the side. I'm definitely going to blacken the sides. It has, you know, atypical. I'm guessing this is either Game Crafter or Make Your Playing Cards. I'm not really good. I'm guessing maybe Make Your Playing Cards kind of stock. It's got a nice, not a bad feel to it. For someone who is a riffle shuffler like me, it's got a nice feel. You know, it bridges really well. You know, I like this kind of stock. It's not super glossy. I really don't mind this. Oops. So yeah, it feels really nice to shuffle. Queen of Swords, of course, will come up in my first pull because that's my card. The King of Pentacles and the High Priestess. So that's a power first pull if I ever saw one. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to working with this during Embrace the Magical. I'm definitely going to be pulling some cards from it. And I believe my phone just, I was messaging Patrick about the PDF, so I might. Okay, I'm inserting this in at the end because Patrick sent me, I was just too impatient to wait, and Patrick sent me the PDF for this. So you can see that you get a PDF guide of it. There's not a lot there. Her intention wasn't to give you everything. It's just to give you a basic. So for example, the Magician just has the Moth. The Master of the Elements is in total control of his actions. What will he create? So just sort of a couple sentences there, going through, of course, all of the cards. I do want to take a quick look at, it does even say pick your poison on the Seven of Cups, which we talk about. Which we talked about here. Let's look at a couple that I thought were a little bit problematic, like the Three of Wands. So it does have it as a mirror. What will you see in the mirror? Your past, your path ahead, your options, or will you be too afraid to look? So that is kind of a mirror energy there, even though it's kind of seeping out like a tar pit, right? So that's pretty cool. Of course, we understand the aspect of those. We've got a coyote, apparently. I thought that might be a Wolverine, but I'm from Michigan, so we have a red-winged blackbird here. The snake here, the red tree boa, is a master. He has nothing left to do but wait for his prey to come to him. He knows the right time to strike, for the Nine of Wands. A little bit different energy there for the Nine of Wands. Let's see what they even say about the Ace of Wands being a feather. The red feather sparks new fire energy. What will inspire you? Turn the spark into a flame. I don't think of fire or feathers as anything to do with sparking flames. That still to me is a little bit different. The red mare is embellished in her self-confidence and sensuality with those feathers. What's the other one I wanted to check was the Dream Catcher, which I think was a little bit strange popping up. Eight of Pentacles, be creative and work hard on what you love. Weave your dreams. Now that makes sense with weaving your dreams. Just in context with the rest of the suit, it just stands out kind of strangely to me. But, you know, that's just a couple cards, and I think that none of it isn't anything that you can't reconcile and use. And again, so you do have this guidebook. It's enough to kind of get you on track and see where she was going with things. I love her tagline here. It says, welcome to the wicked woods. Oh, somebody zoom it in. Welcome to the wicked wood where the roses are black and the apples bleed. So it's that theme of the wicked wood, and I think that it definitely carries out that theme. And which is what the intention of the deck was. So I hope you enjoyed this look at the Witchbone Tarot. It is going to be a lot of fun to use this month for certain, and probably a lot during the winter. It definitely has a fall wintry feel to it. So I think it's wonderful. And there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this.